Welcome to the Cognitive Crucible, produced by the Information Professionals Association. Our website is information-professionals.org, where you can find links and information about today's conversation and get access to members-only content. Join John Bicknell and explore all aspects of our generational challenge, cognitive security. The Cognitive Crucible is a forum that presents different perspectives and emerging thought leadership related to the information environment. The opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of or endorsement by the Information Professionals Association.
My guest today on the Cognitive Crucible is Dr. Matthew Canham, who is the Executive Director of the Cognitive Security Institute and a former supervisory special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI. He has a combined 21 years of experience in conducting research in cognitive security and human technology integration. Matthew Canham, welcome back to the Cognitive Crucible.
Well, thank you very much for having me, John. I'm really excited to be here again.
Yeah, and for interested listeners, you can go back to episode 138, where Matthew was giving us a preview, I think, of a course that you were teaching at the time. I may not be remembering that correctly, but going through a whole bunch of aspects of cognitive security, and so wanted to get an update from you, Matthew, as to what it is that you've been doing. Get your latest thoughts on cognitive security, cognitive warfare, all things cognitive related, but also as the executive director of the Cognitive Security Institute, I think that our audience will really appreciate hearing about this project and the various different initiatives that you guys have going on there. Sound good?
It sounds excellent.
All right. Well, then let's kick things off in typical fashion, and you can use this to go in whatever direction you like, Matthew. But could we start by getting your assessment of our strategic landscape, or if you prefer, the times in which we live?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now today, I think the word of the day is agentic AI. We're just seeing kind of the very beginnings of this. A lot of people are using it right now in the development space, building agents that will help with development of software. I know one developer who has reduced their development time by 20 times, is what he told me. Um, and that's what that looks like right now today. But I think we need to understand the economics of agentic AI to really understand how much of a force this is going to be. So, I believe that you and I both remember a time before the internet.
Yep. Yep.
And if you think about something as simple as going to see a movie, right? We would have to get this thing called a newspaper, which was actually a printed item that came on a daily basis. Um, Once you received this paper, you would have to look through, find a movie that you wanted to see, and then, or you maybe call the movie theater. You have to go to the movie theater. You have to buy your tickets, stand in line to buy the tickets. Hopefully, the tickets are available. They haven't been sold out, and then actually go see the movie. You're talking about maybe a 2-hour process, potentially, just to go see a movie. Today, if you're going to see a movie in a theater, you're talking about an app where you can buy it in seconds, or if you're talking about on-demand streaming, you're literally talking seconds to bring that movie into your own home. So we're talking 2-hour savings on this one activity. And when you multiply that across all of the activities pre and post internet, you can see that we're saving, even as an individual, hundreds of thousands of hours every year, um, by having this instant access.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
so it's easy to see in that context what the economics driving the adoption of the internet was. Now, think about if you have the ability to sit in on multiple meetings at the same time, which I just recently did for the first time, I confess, last week.
Huh.
Uh, but
What do you
or
what do you What do you mean by that? Sitting in on multiple meetings?
Well, I had two computers open and I had
Oh,
two
okay.
meetings going at the
Okay,
same
yeah, I mean,
time.
you
Yeah.
you mean literally you've got Zoom over here and a Zoom on another computer and okay.
Yeah, that was my low tech approach. But
Okay, okay. All right.
hopefully within a year or two, I will have a digital avatar with a digital twin of myself that is actually able to participate in
Ah.
another meeting. And this
Ah.
is where I think we're going, is that we will have these digital proxies acting on our behalf.
Hmm.
And coming back to my internet example, the economics, I believe, will drive agentic AI adoption much in the same way that the economics drove adoption of the internet because of the
Mm.
time savings. We will all be able to multiply our own productivity by 10 or 20 times easily by having these things going out and carrying out tasks on our behalf.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
scheduled travel in the modern era just for a conference a few weeks ago. And even that process of scheduling travel took 30, 45 minutes maybe. Again, this is something where if I could just tell the my AI assistant, go get this for me, and it knows my preferences, it knows the days of the week I like to travel, whether I like an aisle or a window seat, what
Hmm.
airline I have, points for, all of these things, it's going to save a tremendous amount
Yeah.
of time.
How do
But
you how do you contrast what you were just describing, that agentic AI with bots?
um,
I mean, they are
yeah,
bots.
they are.
They are bots, but there's a qualitative difference.
There
I would
is.
imagine.
Um, Well, okay, so I'm going to use an analogy which may not resonate as much for those who don't remember life without the internet.
Uh-huh.
But if you recall the internet in say 1993, where it was basically command line, or if you go back even further, where it was bulletin board sites that you were actually dialing
Hmm.
into,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, versus having the Netscape browser or Google. That's the type of difference I see coming with agentic AI. The difference between bots sort of now and bots in the near future is that the user interface and the user experience is going to massively change to the degree that non-technical people can use these things very quickly and easily.
Hmm.
The one thing I do want to sort of append to that, though, is that this is also going to open up massive attack surfaces, and this is the relevance to security, because now instead of having to social engineer a human target as an attacker, now those personal AI proxies become targets in and of themselves and pivot points that I can attack to then use to pivot the attack towards the individual, which is going to be really, really devastating because we're going to develop trust because that's what we do as humans is we develop trust in technologies that we depend on over time. And these things can be repurposed in ways that are very difficult for us as end users to detect that they're being malicious towards us. And actually, I'm giving a black hat talk in a couple weeks on exactly that topic.
Oh, is that right? Well, I think I'm following, but when you say these things, what are these things? The AI, the agentic AIs,
Yeah,
the workflows themselves, or
yeah, the AI assistant. So
uh,
imagine that you have an AI assistant. Okay, so here's a benign example, right? So you have an AI assistant that helps you with scheduling travel. And unbeknownst to you, let's say an advertiser is also influencing that AI assistant in addition to yourself. You, from the user side, believe that this AI assistant is working on your behalf. But unbeknownst to you, the AI assistant is steering you towards one hotel chain versus another,
mm,
or one airline versus another, not in a way that necessarily is prohibitive, but think more like a nudge.
mhm,
So,
mhm,
it's going to show you this one at the top of the list as an option versus, the other one that's say halfway or halfway down or at the bottom of the list.
Hmm.
And that's the kind of manipulation that I'm concerned about because these things are going to be very, very difficult to detect. We talk about internet bubbles today, where people get siloed according to search engines into these different sort of filter bubbles, right? This is going to be a
Hmm.
million times worse because everyone will have their own personal filter bubble that is being delivered to them by their AI assistant.
Wow. Um, well, so a couple of previous Cognitive Crucible episodes come to mind. First, Carrick Longley is doing some really interesting work with his company Zenith Flow, and I believe that they are looking at like automated workflows and agentic AI. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But he mentioned what you said as well, Matthew, right up at the top. It's like, uh, I mean, smart guy, I mean, some of this assumes you've got some smart driven people who are, driving, managing some of this project work for sure. But layer on top of that, coding improvements and how AI is, making it easier and easier to scale, human ingenuity. And so he talked about that a little bit as well. And so that's an episode for everybody to check out. That's kind of adjacent to all of this. But also, you were just talking about um, how bad actors, maybe in commercial organizations too, are, label people, create avatars of people, but, create these micro communities, which are not geographic communities, but they're, abstract communities online, and, basically weaponizing that kind of herding and forcing of people into communities where they've got similar propensities and whatnot. Oh, so there was a great episode that we had with Libby Lang talking about Chinese algorithmic warfare and that kind of thing. Just as you were talking, those are the kinds of recollections that I was having. What
I
I
I remember
there's
the episode with Libby, by the way. That
yeah
was a great episode.
yeah. There's a question in there somewhere, but I I was also asking about so like Twitter bots or X bots. Those kinds of bots have existed for some time now. But I think of those kinds of bots as like, let's say, single accounts or single Twitter accounts, and the kinds of things that get programmed into them are, when you detect specific keywords and stuff like that, then amplify that to whoever your Twitter or X audience is, right? Uh, but that is qualitatively different than these agentic bots, which can traverse apps or traverse websites, or go from your email or some kind of a command from you, find me a trip this weekend where give it some parameters, and it'll just go to the various different websites, and it'll do all the investigating for you, and select something that meets your criteria. There's a I'm kind of rambling here, but there's a concept that I just heard about fairly recently, which seems like it is really important in this space. It's a concept of in cybersecurity for, it's like initial login verification.
Mm,
Is that ringing any kind of a bell with you? It's like the first time you log into a website is a critical moment,
mm,
because that has to be verified that it is in fact you.
right.
And once it is verified as you, then it's like, okay, we can transact. But it's that first login verification. And having these agentic AIs, logging in as you, it's like first it has to really be validated that it is in fact you, or
Right.
or or an agent acting on your behalf. So anyway,
Well, and
What is your reaction to all of that?
that in and of itself that you just described is itself a vulnerability, right? Because that's a moat, that is a technical hurdle to why you will not want to switch. Once you've got your AI locked in and your AI has access to your credit card and it has access to the resources you want, you're going to be disincentivized to switch to a new AI, which opens up vulnerabilities because now we can start to influence that AI, hence influencing you, and you're going to be less likely to want to switch to a different AI system. So this is going to really amplify things like lock-in, I think, in the future. Um, but yeah, no, I think you're spot on that um, this is not like a Twitter bot that's going to look for keywords and operate in Twitter. This is something that's going to operate across platform. And also, what we're seeing with the language models that are coming about is much more capability to do semantic searches. So this is different
Mm.
than looking for a keyword because, you know, people can talk about Winnie the Pooh, but they're actually referring to Xi Jinping, the, leader of the People's Republic of China, for instance. Well, at a semantic level, it's very easy for a model to understand that this thing, Winnie the Pooh actually represents this leader of this country. But you're not going to detect that with a keyword search. And so semantic versus keyword searching is also going to be a significant game changer here.
Well, so cognitive security is getting a lot of attention these days. Cognitive warfare. So we've been talking about something that's vivid and on people's minds. But is there anything over maybe the last couple of years that you've observed that has perhaps not quite lived up to the hype, if that's a good way of asking?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that was interesting about this last election, the last presidential election, 2024, was that I think there was a lot of concern and speculation that deep fake attacks may play a significant role in the election. And we really didn't see that sort of Pearl Harbor type of moment where a deep fake of one of the candidates appeared and you know perform some action that was detrimental to their campaign or anything like that. And I think that this is something that is very interesting. What Well, let me back up for just a second
Hmm.
and say that I think that cyber deception is a real problem and it's going to continue to be a problem. But I think that getting too fixated on a particular type of attack or a particular medium is going to be problematic because these things are going to come at us from different angles. And if we look at something like how human cognition works in terms of how expectation can sort of play into how we interpret things, I think this really points sort of the direction forward. So NIST did a study a few years ago where they found that when an email that was coming into them fit their expectations of what they would expect from a certain person or from a certain vendor or whatnot, people would be very quick to explain away any cues that contradicted the legitimacy of that email. So maybe it was coming from a Gmail account rather than the business account, or
Mm.
the links mismatched or something. If it fit their expectations, they would explain these indicators away. And the same thing applies to voice phishing or deep fake attacks or disinformation online. All of these things, it's really about what the expectations of that person are. And the thing that's also ignored is that true information can be weaponized, right? And
Mm.
there are certain actors that are very good at parsing or framing true information in ways that is actually very, very deceptive. And I think that's actually a more effective means of a deception because as soon as something is discovered to be a deep fake or false information, it can be negated at that point. People will not pay attention to it because it's fake. But something that's true but is misframed, it's very difficult to dispute that. In fact, I think that you've had Ajit Maan on the show
Yep.
before,
Yep.
and I this is why I really like her theories around narrative warfare, because what she talks about is that the narrative frame is going to drive how people interpret the information that's coming into them, right? So this is how we can present weaponized but true information in a very deceptive way.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. And there's going to be a lot of previous podcasts linked into this particular episode. We'll put that one in for sure. But more recently, a gentleman named Paul Buvart from Norway had him on, and he was describing another way of I guess, bypassing people's filters and making, it goes back to what you were saying about it, it, if something seems more legit, if there's some tangible or observable factors that make a piece of information seem more legit, then that can, just bypass the way people are, filtering out potentially bad information. And he gave a really simple example of, if something is like typed up on a sheet of paper compared to something like a hand scribbled note. And because something is presented as typed and seemingly more polished or more thoughtful or more effort and energy went into producing a piece of information, it's like, well, that must be more legit than something that's messy and scribbled out on a piece of paper, like, or a handwritten note. I mean, it's kind of a silly example, but I think also, what you're describing are these methods of bypassing screening filters and doing it at scale.
Yeah, well, and since we're sort of on what do we want to say, the flashback episode,
Okay, yeah.
I'll reference another previous episode with Jake Beber, and I think he really is
Mm,
spot on when he talks about how information warfare is about what we think, but cognitive warfare is about how we think. And what you
mm,
just described is it's really manipulating how someone thinks about a piece of information, right? Because you mentioned the hand scribbled note versus the typed note. It's the same, it could be in terms of the content, the same information, right? But it's how we process that information is very different given those two contexts.
yeah, 100%. Well, without a doubt, there is, I mean, all of this continues to be um, really, really new for us, in our like wetware of, tens of thousands of years of consuming and processing and filtering out and assessing information. It's just, qualitatively new today, which is really stressing our cultures and societies and uh, uh, individual sense making
Yeah.
in ways that are, um, well, it's a double-edged sword. There's some really glorious and amazing developments that we are potentially going to all be beneficiaries of in some way. But then there are, some really worrying challenges as well. And there's people like you, Matthew, who are on the front lines, you and your colleagues. And so maybe we can use that as a little bit of a transition. I'd love to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the Cognitive Security Institute, what it is, some of the initiatives that you guys have going on right now, and ultimately how interested audience members might be able to engage.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, well, thank you for that. So the Cognitive Security Institute, we started in 2023, and we're now a 501c3 nonprofit, and we really our organization and our effort is focused around three pillars. And the first of these pillars is what we call our community pillar. The next one is what we call our academy, and the final is our research pillar, which is really research and development. And so let me kind of go into all of those. So on the community side, we're currently over 500 members, actually a little over 550. We've grown by 100%. Last year, we doubled in size. We're on track to double in size again this year. Um, and we meet weekly online. It's a semi-closed group. We do some vetting of people who participate in the meetings, but what's really nice about the meetings is that a presenter will present on a topic. That part is recorded, and we upload that typically to our YouTube channel, and we can put a link to the YouTube channel in the notes. And so that's a way to get information out to the general public, but the after discussion remains closed within the meeting participants. And so it's a nice way to strike the balance of having conversations that are not classified but are sensitive in nature, but at the same time disseminating information to the broader public. Um, and within that community pillar, we have the weekly meetings. We also have a new, well, not so new initiative now called Shield, which is oriented specifically around human risk managers and security awareness managers. And that meets once a month online. And that's a very different sort of feel than the other meeting. There's not really a presentation, it's more a discussion around a topic. And the purpose of those meetings is for everyone to learn from everyone else because it's a very challenging role to be in, and there's not a lot of support for people who are in that role. And so we're trying to address that need through that series of meetings. And then our newest initiative is what we call CTX, or Cyber Talent Exchange. And this really grew from the proliferation of people becoming unemployed in tech. And so
Hmm.
right now, it's almost every other day I will get an email from somebody who has lost their position for whatever reason. And these are not, yeah, I want to stress that these are not people who are being fired
Hmm. Hmm.
because of their own performance. In some cases, their entire division has just been eliminated. And so, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take we're trying to collect people that we know, number one, are humans. They're not bots. They're not deep fake North Koreans. They are actual, real human beings who have real skills. We, I can say right now that everyone involved in that program, I'm connected to at least through 1 degree of separation.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
know that every single one of them is a human being. And this is an attempt to also address this problem that we're running into, exacerbated by AI, which is that on many job posting sites, a job post will go up, and within 24 hours, there's 1,000 applicants for this
Mm.
position that can be highly technical and highly specialized. And I think what really needs to happen is we need to almost take a step back, sort of a back to the future approach where um, we're really dependent on communities and reputation in order to place people in certain positions, which is very hard for recruiters to do, right? Because they're trying to fill this position and they may not even have any experience in this field that they're trying to place that person into. If they can come to us and they can give us the requirements for that job, and we can go out into our own community and handpick a half a dozen candidates, not 1,000, and say,
Hmm.
look, these are people who, number one, they're human beings. Number two, they're vetted. Number three, we know by reputation that they're good workers. And so that's really what that CTX
Hmm.
effort is. So,
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
What's been the community reaction so far?
overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's dynamite. What a great initiative for sure. And yeah, so I mean, would you agree then? Well, it sounds to me like you're describing maybe what could be thought of as somewhat anecdotal, but also early evidence of what people have been expressing concern about with the, AI and job displacement. Maybe certain job skills or certain domains are being affected earlier than others, but this is maybe the leading edge of of what you think is coming. I'm probably leading the question or preaching to the choir or something like that, but what are your thoughts around all that?
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of cause and a little bit of effect going on
Hmm.
here
Hmm.
because I do see okay, so the one thing I will stress is this is all purely anecdotal in
Hmm.
my own
Hmm.
personal experience. I have not done an actual analysis of the industry, and I frankly lack the expertise to do that. But what I will say is just anecdotally, what I'm seeing is I think Microsoft, even within the last week or two, laid off several thousand
Mm.
workers.
Mm.
I don't know that they're necessarily being replaced by AI, but the rumors that I'm hearing through personal connections is that the idea is both replacement but also force multiplication, that you have one worker that can now do the work of, say,
Ah,
five workers. And so why do we need five people to fill this, position?
yeah.
But on the back end, part of the effect is that now job seekers are using these things also as force multipliers to apply to jobs. And so I
Hmm.
do know somebody who was recently a victim of one of those layoffs and was also just recently hired by a different big tech company. He submitted over 2,300 applications and he got two interviews. Now,
He
first of all,
used AI to submit the applications. Okay, sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did get hired, but again, he got two interviews. He got one, 50% hit rate because one of those interviews led to a job. But out of 2,300
Mm.
submissions, which pre-AI, how in the world would you have time to, I mean, I don't know how long it would take you to fill out, especially pre-internet, 2,300 job applications. But now you can do that. I don't know that you could do that in a day right now. Maybe somebody who's smart could, but
Yeah.
certainly within a few weeks, it's within the capability of a lot of people. And
Holy
so
stars.
that's one of the problems with AI right now. Also, I think the term for this is sludge. That there's
Really?
just
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if that's a technical term, but it is
Okay.
a term I've heard thrown around, and it's that there's all of this sort of useless AI generated content that's being injected into the digital
Ah.
universe. And I think that's one of the effects that we're seeing in the job market is you got a lot more sludge. It allows people who are not qualified for certain positions to apply for them, and then for the people who are seeking to fill the jobs, they have to go through all of this noise to find the signal.
Wow. Yeah, no, I just did a quick Google AI sludge, low quality, often automated content generated by AI that is saturating the internet. Yeah, so the other concerns I've heard of is these companies that are building the foundational models are desperate's not the word, but they are very keen to uh, use information which is human generated, and I think that they've got a strong preference to try to avoid that kind of AI generated content. Or I'm sure that they're trying to solve that problem of how do you use AI generated content that is generated today in order to make useful models going forward. Um, I'm I mean it doesn't sound like an easy problem, but it does sound like a solvable problem. Have anybody in your community or travels, talk about that kind of a problem set?
Oh, 100%. In fact, I think this is one of the things, data used to be referred to as the new gold or the new oil. I think quality data is the new gold or oil, or maybe
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe the analogy is that this is what you get after you refine, because there's finding data nowadays is not a problem. Finding good data is the
Hmm.
problem.
Hmm.
And so one of I mentioned we had three pillars of effort. We
Hmm.
have community, academy, and research. Academy is very much focused on training professionals. We have some courses coming out over the next few months. But on the research side, we have something called the Cognitive Attack Taxonomy, and it's a free resource. We can link to it. But one of the efforts that we're doing right now is to essentially use this taxonomy, which is a catalog, an expanding catalog of cognitive vulnerabilities, exploits, and tactics, techniques, and procedures, and applying that to cognitive attacks. So, for example, a phishing email that comes into somebody, we can go through and we can annotate and value add to that email as a threat intel stream by basically breaking down what are the TTPs, what are the vulnerabilities that they're going after. So as we're building this data set of this value added data set of cognitive attacks, now we can turn around and take that and ingest that into new models that can be used for threat hunting or analysis, predictive modeling, so on and so forth.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I pulled that up as you were talking. We'll put a link to that in the show notes as well for people to check out if they like, as well as a Reddit article which talks about that AI sludge. And it actually relates directly to job search and job related stuff. So exactly what you're talking about with that fella submitting thousands of applications. So yeah, maybe just kind of closing out a little bit, Matthew. What are your thoughts on like creative destruction? And I guess just to lead the question here a little bit, if AI is displacing a lot of people who had otherwise traditionally been employable or highly employable. You've got agentic AIs that are coming online now, which are saving people a lot of time, not just in their professional life or their professional pursuits, but in their personal life, right? So um, all of this, for me at least, you thinking about how uh, what is the new gold, or what is the platinum now of all of this additional free time that people are going to have. And I almost think of like, you're talking about data as the new gold, but now it's like human creativity is the new gold, meaning people have surplus time and surplus mental bandwidth. Now, what is the most productive use of that additional mental bandwidth? And I think there's probably upside and downside of that. Maybe some of this free mental bandwidth, or not free, but additional freed up mental bandwidth can be frivolized away with drugs and games and stuff like that. And I think we're seeing that as a little bit of a not a little bit, but maybe a worrisome trend in the Western world, where I think young men in particular are uh, at risk of going down those kinds of unproductive pathways. But it's evidence, partly at least evidence, that Western societies have created so much prosperity that you know, it used to be that people had to spend every waking moment looking for the next calorie, right? How am I going to eat today? That's how people had to live their lives, hundreds and thousands of years ago, right? All of that is solved now. We have so much caloric availability that that's basically a solved problem. So anyway, I don't know how do you think about creative destruction along those lines, and what is, what would a good future be as, people have all kinds of free time?
Well, can I can I do dark and then light?
Yes, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the dark part first. I think that the meaning crisis is very real, and so John Vervecchi has like a 50 episode YouTube series
Oh,
on
wow.
this, and it's worth checking out, and we
Okay.
can link. But and I think that the meaning crisis is very much an outgrowth of, like you said, surplus time and a lack of requirement to obtain every single calorie by manual effort. Um, and just a few quick statistics, because we cover a lot of things in the Cognitive Security Institute: human-centered cybersecurity, AI security, neurosecurity, cognitive warfare. But the last one is cognitive resilience. And I think that this is one of the most important, actually, is how do we become more cognitive resilient as a society? Every year, on average, we lose, and this is for the past 5 years, between the ages of 16 and 34, we lose approximately 34,000 young adults between the ages of 16 and 34 to drug overdose.
Mm,
We lose another 16,000 every year between 16 and 34 to suicide. These are both diseases of despair, and I believe that these diseases of despair are coming directly out of the meaning crisis. And this is one of the
mm,
things that we very much want to do more work to address. Um, so, flipping that over, how do we become more cognitively resilient? And I don't have the answer right now, but there are things we are looking at. We're looking at Stoic philosophy and practices in Stoicism, looking at things like meditation and how to
mm.
stay mindfully grounded. So, Anna Collard was one of the speakers for CSI and has a whole talk on how mindfulness can help you resist not only social engineering attacks, but also the sludge and less polite names for the things that you'll encounter on social
Right.
media. And so, what we do with that extra time, I think, is really an open question. I think that what you just brought up is probably going to be one of the most vexing problems over the next 50 years, because I do think that we're going to end up with more free time and the ability to do more. And I think that's also a challenge. I talked to somebody who did, I don't remember what the term
And
for
and
this.
and potentially live longer. I mean, I mean, not to, like live forever, but I mean, I don't think it's too far-fetched to say, average human life could, start bumping up to like 100 and stuff like that.
And productively longer,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
we live to 100, but we're not confined to a bed for the last 10 years of our life, but we're
yeah,
actually
yeah.
living.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But it is a bit head scratching. I mean, it's super easy to think really short term and just be like, wow, man, I just wish I could just not do anything all day. Man, that would just be the best. But I tell you what, I mean, I think, I don't know. After about 2 weeks of that, I think people start getting itchy, being like, wait, I got to do something. I mean, there's something about the human condition, which, I mean, we are curiosity seeking, or we are information seeking. There's some like little snippet, like humans are story seeking, pattern seeking animals or something like that. Yes, agree with that. But before that, we are information seeking and we are novelty seeking. And boredom, people solve boredom by doing stuff.
Right.
And if you have millions or billions of people that just have free time, it's just like, well, let's just do stuff. I don't know, you 20, 25 to 30-year-old men with a lot of free time on their hands, or with like a gender imbalance in the world. I mean, that can be great or it could be really problematic. So yeah, this kind of stuff has to get figured out.
Well, for better or worse, it will be figured out.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, man. Hey, well, thank you again for coming back on the podcast, Matthew. Everybody, please go and check out the Cognitive Security Institute. There are several links in the show notes. A really worthwhile a group of folks, and you and your colleagues, Matthew, are doing a fantastic job for educating, but also helping people who are part of the greater community. So well done, and keep up the great work. And with that, Dr. Matthew Canham, thank you so much for being a return guest on the Cognitive Crucible.
Well, thank you so much for having me on again, John. I really valuable podcast here. I am honored to be on again.
The Cognitive Crucible is the only podcast dedicated to increasing interdisciplinary collaboration between information operations practitioners, scholars, and policymakers. To find out more about the Information Professionals Association, visit us at information-professionals.org. Please support our podcast by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review.